Hello and welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope. I am so pleased to have two gentlemen with me today who have served their country and continue to serve the veterans of Westboro. John, do you want to start?
Yeah, my name is John Gallinagh. I served in the United States Navy and have lived in Westboro since 1975. I have 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren.
All living or educated
in the area, yes.
How wonderful is that? And you?
Paul Horrigan, a veteran of the U.S. Army, and I've lived in Westboro since 1971.
When we talked earlier, you told me about the end of the building of the on Milk Street that had been consumed with a fire that had been the home to one of the organizations that you were both involved with. And some people don't know the difference between the VFW and the American Legion. So just to get that confusion out of the way, could you start with the American Legion, and you can start with
Vice versa.
Oh, vice versa? You want to do the veterans and...
I'll do the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Basically, that building has been part of the VFW post since, I think, 1947. And it had just undergone a renovation. And unfortunately, a small fire broke out, did some smoke damage. And there was a lot of water damage in terms of the response to the potential fire. And after a lot of deliberation, we made a decision that financially we could not afford to reopen the building as a post. So subsequently it was sold to 2 private individuals. The VFW, in order to be a member of the VFW, you have to have served in a conflict zone, such as in Paul's case, the Vietnam War. In my case, I was served with a Navy Expeditionary Force during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So you have to be involved, deployed in a crisis of some sort in order to become a member of the VFW. And currently we're recruiting.
Yeah.
Want to get that out?
Well, yes, and we're going to talk more about that, how important
with that,
it
I'll
is.
turn it over to Paul and the American Legion.
Yeah, the American Legion.
And the American Legion, of course, is the longest running association of that nature. And they had a very vibrant American Legion here in Westboro years ago. And not too many years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And right up until they had a home situation. They didn't have a place to meet. And it started declining in membership. People got old. And it was effectively defunct 5 years ago. And John and I were both on the Veterans Advisory Board. We talked and we made a decision to resurrect the American Legion, which we did. We have 50 members, 52 members, and active maybe 15 members. But it's alive and well, and it's performing these functions are all American Legion functions. And so we're doing well, although the age is rising again. We're in the 70s and 80s, you know, and so it's hard to get the youngsters because they're working and they have young families.
So now, are the people that were involved in your organization of the moving over to become, they can't, they have to still set...
Legally we cannot, they're 2 separate legal organizations and they cannot be merged under the current bylaws of probably either the VFW or the American Legion. But as Paul mentioned, we've been working really hard to build up the American Legion and to make it into a more vibrant force in the community. Unfortunately, with the VFW, because of the fire and so on and so forth, there's been a significant drop-off in membership at the VFW. And currently, we are meeting by Zoom, and we right now we're supporting whatever community activities that the American Legion works on. For example, Paul will talk about the clothing drive, which is taking place this week for Kindness Week. We're getting the VFW members to support that and any other of those kinds of organizations that we feel is a benefit to the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things you said when we spoke privately about this broadcast was that you both wanted to make Westboro a place where veterans felt like they belonged, and that some of the issues that still face and still haunt some of the soldiers. I don't know how many right now of veterans live in Westboro. Is it in the 50s, 100?
There's 550 veterans in Westboro.
There's 550 living veterans.
Yep.
And how many that are active in your association? Only 50.
I mean, yeah. Only 15 or 20 really active, and far less in the VFW. So I mean, it's a struggle to get people to join, and the people that do join, as I said, the age is right up there, to the point where they're not always available to volunteer for things.
Yes, volunteering and
yeah.
working outside or
difficult,
doing
yeah.
those kinds of things.
Even we had a breakfast this morning at the senior center, which was a veterans breakfast, and there were several, probably 3 or 4 there in their motor scooters, and you know they have a hard time getting to these functions. You know, so you can see the population is aging. There are very few young veterans that participate in our organizations.
Right, and you started to mention that the reasoning wasn't because they were disheartened by the organizations or angry at how their experiences went. They're more pragmatic. And what was it that you were going to talk about with the younger men and women who?
Well, yeah, the challenge, I mean, I'll make it personal about myself. I moved here in 1975. I had a job, had 3 children at the time, and between the job and going to sports events with my children, what have you, I really did not have that much time to devote to an organization such as the American Legion or the Veterans of Foreign Wars. But since I partially retired, I got more involved becoming first a member of the American Legion and then becoming a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And then as Paul alluded to, the American Legion did not have a home anymore in Westboro. And so with Paul's leadership, we were able to kind of rebuild the interest in the American Legion. And currently we have 44 paid members, but not all of them live in Massachusetts or even in town. At the Veterans of Foreign Wars, we have a roster of 44, and again, nine of them live out of state, and probably another 10 or so don't live in Westboro. They live in different parts of Massachusetts or different parts of New England. And the challenge that I think both the Legion and the VFW has is how do we recruit younger members to kind of take up the challenge of making sure that both organizations are vibrant in the community. And again, I'll defer to Paul on this, but we have had a number of outreach programs that maybe you want to talk about, Paul, where we've.
Yeah, we're one is we're devoted to helping veterans, and the biggest problem right now is the suicides, veteran suicides. They're 17 a day. So
Nationwide or statewide?
Nationwide. And so our job is to reach out and help them any way we can. And we've tried to call them, and the results are not great. we did call the whole lot of veterans, the whole 550 or close to 550. But nobody has any problems, when you talk to them. So our goal is still very much to continue reaching out in any way we can in order to help our veterans in town. And the fact that statement we made about making Westboro a welcoming place for veterans, that was there 15 years ago when I joined the Veterans Advisory Board. That was a statement they made very clearly. And the chairman at that time made, and it's always stuck in our mind, that we're here to help the veterans any way we can. Any funds we raise go into helping the veterans. Everything we raise is really dedicated to helping the veterans. So as far as recruiting youngsters, I mean, my story is similar to John's. When I left the military, I didn't join anything. I was working too hard, and I had 3 children. And the first time that I allowed that thought to creep into my mind is when I was a Veteran of the Year, Grand Marshal or something to that effect, maybe 15 years ago. And when I did that, I saw that what they were doing, and I said, "Geez, this is such an honor. I want to help." So I joined them, and I've been working since that time with the Veterans Advisory Board. And then when John and I decided to put our shoulders behind the American Legion, and I'm a member of the VFW as well, but they never were a factor for me anyway, even though I was a life member.
Well, there's an interesting fact that we didn't mention is that both of you are on the town veterans community, and you're an elected officials in that department. A little, what you said struck out a nerve with me. You said you got interested, you had the same thing about children and job,
Right.
and you became the
Grand Marshal.
Grand
I think it was,
Marshal.
yeah.
Perhaps those young men who are working and have children, if you selected one to be the Grand Marshal, it might have the same effect it had on you.
Good will.
And it's often contagious with a group that they feel they belong. So just as a outsider looking at this issue, my husband was in the military. I took his hat for part of the symbolism over here. And when we moved here is when he became involved because we retired.
Yeah.
And he joined, he couldn't find the local group, so he's moving over to change his affiliation to the Westboro group. But it's something that we cannot forget, because the minute we forget, we disrespect the lives that were lost and the families that served their country while their husbands or wives were gone. And so we have to keep that image going. And I know you have some new monuments that are going up. There's an awful lot of them in town for a small town. I have to be.
I guess just look at that sheet and you can see how many things we get involved with as a small group.
Yes, so with that small group, you can spread the poppy seeds, because you can't kill off the poppies.
Yeah.
That we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, and how that was instrumental, this one battle that in the Flanders Field on the organization, the poppies as a symbol of those organizations. But at first I wanted to get back to what briefly your outlook is for the next 6 months of these projects that you have, and there'll be a close-up of these for the audience to see in just a minute. But I know that you do a clothing drive, and one is starting this week.
Started today, actually. Yeah, under working with Westboro Connects and Kindness Week. I would like to go back to a point that you raised with both Paul and I about how the challenges of recruiting new members, and particularly younger members. I think one of the issues that I am very concerned about is that we have no place in town for veterans. And we do have a request with the town government that whenever the new facility that's being used right now as the temporary library, that we be allocated specific space. A number of the other towns have places where veterans can drop in, have a cup of coffee with no agenda, talk about whatever's on their mind. And I think, to me, over the next year, depending on how the new community center evolves, it's my personal opinion that with so many veterans in town, 550 plus veterans in town, we might be more successful if we could have a veterans facility dedicated not just to the American Legion, not just to the Veterans of Foreign Wars, but to the Westboro Veterans Advisory Board, and a place where the Veteran Service Officer can hang out and take applications, help veterans with their claims, with their appeals, and so on and so forth. And right now, the VFW has no place, and so we meet by Zoom, which has real limitations. And as Paul will tell you, we currently meet at the Westboro's Senior Center on a monthly basis, and but I think that's a major goal that I would like to see the town accomplish, designating a place where, sort of a drop-in place where we can have coffee in the morning, maybe a light dinner at nighttime, and so on and so forth.
Breaking the cycle of isolation, which leads to depression, which leads to suicide. And that's a small step of just that close connection that they felt while they were in the service, of being part of a platoon or a group of men and women that there's maybe still searching for. And if we could put that together.
Yeah, and I envision if we had our own, common place, is that we could invite speakers to come. As Paul alluded to, the high rate of suicide among veterans is a major problem. That with Paul's leadership, we've done a number of outreach programs where we've called people, sent out postcards from the Veterans Advisory Board and so on and so forth, to try to let people know that we're here to help them and serve them. Do you want to elaborate on that, Paul?
And that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And the dedicated space is critical for us, because you have to have a home.
Yeah.
Even if the senior center treats us fantastic, so we have no complaints there. It's a great resource for us. But while they're making this the changes over here at the new facility, they allocated us a very small space just on the drawing board. And Jim Teppo, who was the chairman of the Veterans Advisory Board a few years ago, put a plan together and sent it to them, which gave us a lot more space and gave us a veterans location, as John said, as opposed to any specific group. And that's what we need. We need a dedicated space where we can bring veterans in, and they feel
At home.
enjoyable to drop in.
Yeah.
This Post 22, which I don't know much about, but I hear John and a few other guys talking about how welcome they are in the small space they have. We really need that which John has stated, because in order to grow, you need a home.
Yes.
We need a place, if we're going to attract younger veterans who are working, got kids in sports or what have you, we need to be able to sponsor meetings in the evening time when they're not working, or maybe on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, whatever would work. And right now, certainly the VFW post is really limited in that regard. The American Legion, as Paul said, we work very closely with the Senior Center, and they've been phenomenal in supporting anything that we want to engage them with. They've been terrific. But again, having a particular location in town where veterans can hang out and have a coffee.
Yeah. Well, it's not a giant, monumental event that you have to try to. This is small. You can find a place somewhere here. It's just a matter of focusing everyone's attention on it.
Correct.
And making it an issue
Sure.
where people say, you know what, that's not fair. There are people who need to socialize. And look at this long list of events, which will be up close and personal here. But you have to keep track of anyone who passes away that's a
Yes,
veteran. You send them condolences, I'm sure, and have
Yeah, we do
some
that.
kind of ceremony for their families. There must be some in nursing homes by this time if they're
Yeah.
in the age
Yeah,
group.
Paul can
that,
talk
Lot of
about
them,
tomorrow what
yeah.
we're planning to do.
okay, so tomorrow's Veterans Day, which is since I was a little girl, my father was not able to, he was too old to be in World War II. And so he volunteered in doing a lot of things in town. But we were all, on Veterans Day, walk to the center in the city that I lived in, this big monument. And so we all had to stand there. And, as a little kid, we got, the poppies, which we'll
Sure.
talk about in a
Yeah.
minute. And we just thought it was the greatest day. We got flowers and everybody was, very solemn. So mother told us, no joking around and be quiet. 3 little girls and their
Yeah.
and it was the beginning of the seeds of knowing that that's something sacred. And you have to, even if your father wasn't in the service, his brothers who were
Sure.
younger than him were, that you still have to pay your moment of silence or your moment of appreciation. And my generation was consumed with Vietnam. And many of my colleagues in college, classmates, were in that lottery. In fact, my husband was invited to join on his high school graduation day. So he didn't even get to go to college to be in that. He was in high school, and he got called up, and he went during the Vietnam era. So we have to remember all those people as far back as possible. So you're doing this, we'll talk about the poppies in a minute, but you did the breakfast yesterday or this morning.
That was the senior center yesterday.
Yeah, our
Okay.
breakfast was done in September.
Who goes to visit the veterans?
Well, Paul can talk about that. We plan to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, we all do. We all do, basically. But tomorrow, we're going to the Highlands. They have 29 veterans there now. And we're going to participate in, after our ceremony, we're going down there at 1:30 to participate in their ceremony, which is giving thank yous to their veterans. And we normally will give them, hand out the things. And we have somebody coming to sing, and we got a half a dozen veterans going, and they're thrilled because we get involved. And they open us, they said, after your ceremonies, if you want to come down and have lunch, we're here for you, So, we make it a point in the last 4 or 5 years, John and I check with all the nursing homes, and the ones that had veterans are the ones that wanted to put on a show, so to speak. We made sure we were there. This year, there's a lunch at the Willows, and there's a couple of veterans that are going to participate in that. And then the Highlands has 29 veterans. And, they came to the breakfast this morning, which was a senior center. This was a total senior center
Event.
effort. But they actually came from the Highlands in their scooter,
Yep.
in a scooters right up the hill. Amazing, Vietnam veterans. So there's a fertile ground there, at least to go in there and talk with them and shake their hand and discuss their service. And we've tried to do that the last 2 or 3 years.
So how do you select the Veteran of the Year? And please
Yeah, the
repeat his
Veteran of the
name.
Year is selected really by the Veterans Advisory Board, which we're members of. So we open it up to any veteran to put a suggestion in. This year, we felt Paul Kevany was the unanimous decision. We all agreed on that because of his background. And for several times over the last 5 years, we've tried to engage him to participate, but he didn't want to this year because we had a closer connection to him. He agreed to, and we were delighted because he's a combat veteran from Vietnam, wounded multiple times. He won the Silver Star for action, and he lives right in the center of town. So somebody knew him better than we did and communicated with him, and he agreed.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
that's really
to be-
terrific, yeah.
Yeah.
We're hoping that he can be there because he was in a car accident when he was hit by a car on Thursday or Friday
Oh, my
night
goodness.
in the hospital, broken ribs,
Oh, dear.
and somebody just told me a broken leg too. And then we also heard that he was going to, his son said he may show up.
Yeah,
you know.
that he can be there and in his
Yeah.
little scooter, perhaps.
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting that you do. We talked about the clothing drive, but the bingo night. I have never seen an advertisement or anything about a bingo night.
This
Is
year-
this only for veterans?
We've only had it twice.
We-
It's
Oh,
for-
okay.
It's for everybody.
And
Yeah,
the woman that ran it is an Air Force veteran, and and she, in the 2 years that she did the project, it was fabulous, a great turnout, and so on and so forth. But we're looking for someone to head up that. Right now, we don't have any volunteer that would step up and organize bingo night.
It's too much labor.
Pardon?
It's too much effort.
It's
It
a lot of
takes
effort.
a lot.
You got to get permission from the town, from the Commonwealth, in order to hold it.
Yep.
Because it's gambling,
Yep.
technically. And so this year we did not have anybody available to step up. I would like to circle back to tomorrow, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Tomorrow, as Paul indicated, Veterans Day will commence at around 10:30 a.m. tomorrow at the Forbes Building. It will be held outside, even though it's going to be cold. The VFW is sponsoring coffee and donuts in the morning. The coffee is being provided by Post 22, and just a moment explaining what Post 22 is. Post 22 got its name from the fact that once a young person with disabilities turns 22, there are no longer any state programs that support them. And so this woman started a program. Her son suffers from autism, and so she started a nonprofit called Post 22, and they volunteer tomorrow for their group, which would include the young people with disabilities, to serve hot coffee. And we're also going to be providing some hot chocolate and munchkins. And then the VFW is also paying for a food truck to show up to offer a light lunch at the end of the proceedings. Light lunch would be probably hamburgers, hot dogs, that type of stuff. So it's the first time that we've tried anything like that on Veterans Day. Last year, the Veterans Advisory Board did sponsor refreshments for Memorial Day, which was pretty successful. It was a beautiful day, and a lot of people were interested in getting soda and all that kind of stuff. So we're happy. You know, the VFW is happy that we're sort of collaborating with this Post 22.
Yes.
And we think what they do is a wonderful cause, and we stand ready to support them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's right by the temporary library.
No,
Upstairs?
no, it'll
No?
be up probably on. It's at Parkman Street. It's the street right next to the current library, the
Okay.
main library. We've asked that the police block it off so we can have the tents there and.
Oh, so that'll
and the
everything
food
will be
truck.
central.
So it'll be all central there. So if it's too cold, they can pop over, get a hot cup of coffee, hot cup of chocolate if they want, and then if they, at the conclusion of that whole program, which we expect will last about 45 minutes or so, 12:15, 12:30, then people could stop over and help themselves to free hot dogs, which the VFW is paying for.
So the Veterans Day starts out at Forbes Building. Do you visit all the memorials in town or just
So it all happens at the Forbes.
at the Forbes?
The only other thing we do is we visit a designated group visits the cemeteries and says a prayer there. But everything else is captured right over here.
Okay. And there's quite a few memorials in front of the Forbes Building, so you can,
Yeah, they're managed by a different town organization called the Trustees of Soldiers Memorials.
right. And that's what my husband got involved with this year. And so he's ratcheting up his involvement in the veterans. And so you just have to get somebody at the moment in which they're ready and show them the way. That's all. I'm just going to mention one other thing that you do. You're also very generous to not only the veterans, but you do things for the high school kids, scholarships. Down here, you say that you do Christmas gifts for the vets as well as others. You place all the flags around town.
Cemeteries.
And the cemeteries. You do that yourself, or do you encourage non-military volunteers to help? I know the Boy Scouts do one.
We do get the Boy Scouts, we get the National Honor Society, and we get the Knights of Columbus.
Yeah.
And we get people from other of the town organizations individually that come out. We normally get, we need about 25 people per large cemetery.
Yeah.
And we get that. And we get that number of people. So, in fact, we're taking them off the next week from Saturday. Yeah. We'll take them down.
What I would like to, as a person who likes to connect and collect stories of this community, of the people who live here now, just as the wonderful job that the Historical Society has, this collection of the far past, I think that collecting stories of the veterans would be a wonderful activity for these Honor Society kids. I did this in Connecticut, where we had students come in and interview and chat and had coffee and soda with a veteran, and then they recorded their stories, and then we transcribed them so that in our town we had a collection of all those stories before the memory started to slip, and as we get older, our memories get cloudy. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to have some of your stories told, and of veterans. And I'm sure that situations like you today being here with the studio, that we could come and tape some of these heroes at any stage of their work, because they gave up so much, including, I think, you would get a lot of the people to come, the new veterans, if you did something with the families, like having a picnic for veterans and their families to come. Because a wife and children and husband coming to something makes a big difference than the husband or wife leaving to go to something alone. And that's when the heart is suddenly pulled out and saying, I should do more of this. I should be involved. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I will channel some of the thoughts I've had for you from my years of fundraising and running nonprofits of how to get some of these things off the ground that you no longer have people to help you with. That it was. But I wanted to get back to when I was a little kid, I didn't understand why they gave me a red flower. So I did a lot of research before we spoke, because I didn't really know where the idea came from. And unfortunately, it came from, and I'm sure you know, it came from a very horrific battle on Flanders Field during World War I, actually in 1919, in which the field had been decimated by battle, with the bombs going off and those shootings back and forth. But yet, the poppy is a very resilient plant.
Grow, yeah.
It'll stay growing no matter what happens. And this poet, who was also a military personnel at the battlefield, were 87,000 Allied soldiers died. And he was just so overcome with it. He wrote a poem called Flanders Field. And two women from different parts of the world, one a professor in Europe and another that was in Paris, and an American woman saw and read that poem and said, we should make this a symbol of these organizations that support them. So you will always be resilient and be remembered. And I just thought that was such a poignant story, but built on such a horrific idea of 87,000 people being killed on the same field. And we're going to have a taping of one of our colleagues here at the station reading that poem for you, so you can hear the beauty of it and how it came to be that poppies became the symbol of both the VFW and the American Legion as important.
For all military.
And all military. And you don't charge for them.
No.
No, we're not allowed to.
Yes, so you give them away. I was thinking a good fundraiser, make a few. No.
I mean, we accept donations, but
yes, and so
we're not
please
allowed to sell.
donate if you want to take a
It's our
flower.
best fundraiser, actually.
Yes, so
Twice
this
a
is
year.
good. So as a way of wrapping up today,
Could I just circle back
Oh,
before
sure.
you wrap up?
No, that's fine.
Because you mentioned something along the order of being involved with the students.
Mm-hmm.
As Paul indicated, we work very closely with the National Honor Society.
Mm-hmm.
They help provide volunteers for different, whether it's putting the flags on the cemetery, removing the flags and so on and so forth. But also they're very instrumental with the current clothing drive. And we conclude the clothing drive when all of the clothing is collected. It's brought out to Mill Pond, and the Mill Pond School sponsors a light breakfast for veterans, and we have an opportunity to sit down with I think it's the eighth grade students, and do these roundtable discussions about.
Oh, how wonderful.
So we do that. We take photographs of it, but we don't record it, obviously.
good.
But I mean, obviously, the children of that age are very interested. What did you do in the war?
Right.
That type of thing. So we do. We're very happy that we have this relationship with the National Honor Society. The current president, Michelle Lowe, is a fabulous person. She actually helped design our posters, which we use for the clothing drive, Veterans Day, and the free breakfast, and so on and so forth. So I just want to
Yes.
give a shout out to the National Honor
Oh,
Society
yes.
because they do a good job. But also Mill Pond, the principal there is an Army veteran,
Oh.
and he does a great job in promoting patriotic events at the school.
Well,
The clothing drive is in conjunction with the school system.
Oh, good.
Literally, and all the schools are involved, and the directions are from the superintendent
On
and
down, yeah.
the principal, and then the principal of Mill Pond, and we've got 6 or 7 locations. All the schools, police, fire, senior center, and town hall, they all collect the clothing.
Well, the two of you have been a little army of yourselves. A platoon of gentlemen would be needed to do the work that you're doing. And you're doing it with such humility. It has just been a pleasure to meet and speak with you. I never met you before, and I just found it to be so compelling what you're trying to do and for the future, and what you did for our country when you were in service. And I'm committing on evidence that anytime you need help in planning something, I am a planner and
A fundraiser. Huh?
a fundraiser. Yes,
We've made a note of that.
yes. I was very successful at raising money in Connecticut for my 2 nonprofits, and they were both things I felt very strongly about. So when I am engaged, I can engage others to write checks, and that's the least I can do, since I was never able to serve in any particular agency or government during any of the wars that you listed. And it's unfortunate that we have such a long list. You know, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and the War on Terror. Let's hope that that's the end of the list. Let's make our generation the one that stops and makes that the end of the list. So thank you so
I
much.
want to thank you for inviting me and for being here. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So before we wrap up today and our chat with our two guests, I'd like to have you think about the drive down Main Street in Westboro, and you glance up, and on a telephone pole, a light pole, you'll see banners of different veterans. And I'd like to have Paul just tell us a little bit about those banners before we leave today.
Right. We have 147 veterans on the banners, 70 banners, because there's multiple veterans on each one. And they consist of 96 living veterans and 51 deceased veterans. 7 of them were killed in action. And we've just about maxed out the poles in town because we only can use the town poles, the black poles. So we have maybe another half a dozen veteran spaces for Memorial Day coming up in 26. So these are all Westboro. They either lived in Westboro, joined the service when they were in Westboro, or lived here afterwards. But they're all connected to Westboro, and it covers the full range from. It also covers World War I, II, Korea, and Iraq and Afghanistan. And it covers the full range of people in town. The 51 that are deceased, we knew most of them. You get to know these people very closely when they submit their applications because we have to look into how they served, et cetera. We have it on a spreadsheet. And when we talked before, you said you wanted to talk about a few, just to show, the personal part of it, because when we put them up, or when we prepared to have them put up, John and I and another guy, they were over at the DPW, and we prepared to have them mounted. We had to look at them all, and it's the third or fourth time that I've seen them. Plus, I had all the applications when they joined. So I made a comment to you that I felt like some of them, they were all like my friends. When I walked down the town, I had to walk last week 3 times to get them all, to make sure we had everybody on the right pole, et cetera. And again, you feel like, oh, I know this guy and this guy. But I made a note of a few of them, just to make that point. We had Joe Nason up there, who was a Navy pilot in World War II, and he spent 3 years in a Japanese prison camp. He wrote a book, wrote a great book about it. And Joe was part of the town meetings, et cetera, for years. And he and his wife, Mary, and he was a great man. He passed on, but we look at him every year, have him up there. And another youngster who was killed in action was Stephen Sullivan. He was in the Navy and he was in the Marine Corps, and he ended up as a security agent for the State Department. And he was killed in Iraq by a insurgent wearing a bomb vest. And his mother and sisters live in town now. And I say Stephen because I coached him in Little League, And Vincent Lee was killed in Vietnam. His mother just died last year. And he was a big connection. He's got a nice monument over near St. Luke's Church on, what is that street there? That's the side street there. But there's 2 monuments there. Vincent Lee, and then there's another guy on there which I'm going to show you separately. And the town, Ed McTide, the town council for many years, and a lawyer in Westboro for 50 years and still living here. He's up there, he was a lieutenant. And And there was a young man, 1967. He was a graduate of Westboro High, like 65. And he was in the Air Force, and he was killed in a plane crash off of Nantucket. They left Otis Air Force Base. The plane went up and over Nantucket and crashed. And he was killed there, and his monument is next to Vincent Lee's downtown. And his struck me. I actually brought a picture of him because it was such a beautiful picture, and he was so young, and it kind of tells you, 1967, he was such a young and handsome kid, and he was killed in that plane crash in April of 1967. So I thought the picture was so great that I brought it along just to show you.
Well, I'll make sure that it's clearly posted at the end. Thank you for sharing those. And I spoke to you about perhaps collecting all of those.
Yeah,
and
yes,
and I will work on that with you, and we can have them perhaps in the newspaper once a month, perhaps a story about them.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that because we've got the background on most of them. Yeah.
Well, you may not have noticed that I started crying listening to these
I almost did too.
heartwarming stories, because once you're a mother or a wife or a big sister,
A soldier.
you think about that could have been my
Sure.
family, that could have been
that's
my
right.
husband. I may have never have met him if he hadn't come home to go back to college. We met on the first day of school in college. But I want to thank you again for joining us, because it was not only an informative but a very emotional look at the work you do, but also the commitment and the remembrance of men and women who gave their lives and to their country and gave their support to their country.
It's great. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and to also wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving, where you'll eat too much and regret it, but it's wonderful sitting around a table with your family and friends. But remember those who may not have enough food, or may not have proper clothing, or don't have a family anymore, and to look to this list of ways that you could perhaps support a veteran, a family in Westboro who might need your help. So thank you again, and happy holidays.
In Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard among the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.